This day, and I'll see you again soon.
Welcome to All Day on this Tuesday, I believe it is. Tuesday, right? Yeah, it is Tuesday. Yeah. Keith Marler's hand model standing by here. Rob Olson holding down the desk today, and a lot on tap today. We're going to have a discussion a little bit later on with the mayor of Lakeville, the Twin Cities suburb that is putting a stop temporarily to new home construction. So we'll talk to the mayor about exactly what's behind this. Part of it is some efforts at the Capitol that they say could impact local zoning, and they want to see how that plays out. But we'll discuss all that coming up a little bit later. Also later today, the State Fraud Prevention Committee will be meeting at the Capitol discussing a couple of things. One is feeding our future, and the other is charter schools, because charter schools have been an issue here with fraud investigations as well. Today marks 10 years since the death of Prince. So a couple of things going on there. We'll be live at Paisley Park. Lauren Andrago's out there, where there's a professor at the University of Minnesota of all things Prince, because he teaches a class about Prince and about his specifically social influence in the 1980s in Minnesota. All right, on the sports front, last night it was a late night for sports fans to watch the Wild drop one in Game 2 down in Dallas, but the Wolves coming away with a win in their Game 2 in Denver. So we're going to chat the playoff developments for both teams as they now prepare to come home. And a swing towards summer and our temperatures today, so that's what Keith is here to talk about, how long this warmth will last. And that's coming up here in a couple of minutes, so he's waiting patiently. Right now, though, a couple of other things going on live. We are watching for the governor or potentially other state lawmakers maybe speaking with the press after a closed-door meeting that is going on right now. Again, this is the governor meeting with legislative leaders. This is pretty common as we get to the final stretch of the session, is they meet together to plot out what they can find common ground on in terms of the priorities for the session, for the leaders. Where can we go? How can we bring it home? So if they come out and speak to the media, which is not uncommon, it's just unknown when that will be, we are here to bring it to you live if and when that happens. Also happening a little bit ago, late this morning, Mayor Jacob Fry, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara, Council Member Elizabeth Schaefer, other Minneapolis city leaders got together in Uptown today to discuss kind of the state of where things are in Uptown and where they need to go, the new measures that they hope will improve safety in the area, things that they'd like to see still happen. So Mayor Fry detailing some of the steps that have been taken.
Here's some of the work that's happening. First, our Minneapolis Police Department, the 5th Precinct have stood up on the ground patrols, and we know that they're making a difference. These ongoing daytime patrol units have been tackling livability concerns. They've been preventing issues from happening before they arise. They've been de-escalating tense situations, and they've been making sure that we're preventing some of the on-site drug use from taking place that has largely prevented people from going to these businesses from the get-go. At night, our night watch teams are coordinating closely with businesses, with Metro Transit, with Park Police, and with the county, also tackling livability issues head-on, and Chief O'Hare will share some of the more on the results here shortly. But it is clear that these efforts are working, thanks to the entire 5th Precinct team and Inspector Novak. We've also had strong partners across the board, many of whom are here with us today. Metro Transit, especially the Homeless Action Team, thank you for your work at places like the Uptown Transit Center and on the mall. Hennepin County, and Commissioner Green is here with us, including the security work that is happening here at the Walker Library. Thank you for being a critical partner. The Park Police for your continued presence and coordination, and both the Minneapolis and Hennepin County Health Departments for connecting people to services and treatment. Again, if we're going to tackle some of the issues that we're seeing on the streets, it needs a comprehensive approach. We need upstream work. We need social services. We need prevention. We need treatment. And yes, we also need enforcement. If one of those solutions is taken away, you ultimately have problems on your streets. And what we've found is that we need to be doubling down much further.
Yeah, the mayor saying that the Uptown of the future obviously is going to be dramatically different than the Uptown of the past. You know, they're not just trying to put things back exactly the way they may have been in decades past, looking to the future. But he said some core things need to be the same. The conditions need to be livable. You need to be able to walk around that area. So they're continuing to work on safety improvements in that area. Now at 1:30 this afternoon, the Minneapolis City Council will be taking up a new ordinance about decriminalizing the possession of drug paraphernalia. It would eliminate that. It would simply make it illegal to manufacture drug paraphernalia, not to possess it. During the press conference in Uptown, Mayor Frey said he hadn't seen the exact language of that bill. Essentially, it's taking the old language and crossing everything out and adding in another line. He did express concerns, though, about this proposed new ordinance, saying illegal paraphernalia, the possession of it, can be a useful tool for officers as they're trying to track down and investigate dealers who are preying on residents in the city. Also at the City Council, eviction notices back on the agenda this afternoon. This has been a bit of a drama here over the past couple of months. In the wake of Operation Metro Surge, too, is where this came about. Several council members say they're not going to give up the fight to extend the eviction notice period. Now, you recall this spring, Mayor Frey vetoed an ordinance that they'd originally passed that would have lengthened the required notices from 30 days to 60. Well, now they're back at it again. A group of council members wants to introduce a different version of it, this time extending that notice period from 30 days to 45. Some council members have also put out a call for public testimony. That meeting is at 1:30, and we'll be airing that meeting once it begins. Other news regarding the Minnesota state flag controversy, if you want to call it that. The tug of war between the new one and the old one is another city is bringing back the old state flag. This time it's Elk River. Their city council approving plans to fly the old flag on city-owned property. They say this is after a survey received overwhelming support in that city. Roughly 75% of the people who took the survey supporting flying the former flag instead of the current one. The Elk River mayor, John Dietz, said the amount of responses received was more than he'd ever seen for a single issue at any time during his 32-year tenure. The decision on whether to display a state flag, by the way, which one you want, is left up to each city under Minnesota law. Other Minnesota cities that have previously opted to bring back the old design include Champlin, Zumbrota, North Branch, Detroit Lakes, Pine Island, Cross Lake, Babbitt, and Wadena. Quickly now, the latest on the war in Iran. U.S. forces boarded an oil tanker this morning, just one day before the ceasefire between the U.S. and Israel and Iran is set to expire. This tanker was in the Indian Ocean, but again, it's an Iranian tanker found in the Indian Ocean. The U.S. military is calling this morning's mission a global warning to track down vessels tied to Tehran. The oil tanker previously been sanctioned for smuggling Iranian crude oil into Asia, and it is the second vessel linked to Iran that's been intercepted by the U.S. military. The Navy attacked and seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship on Sunday that it said had tried to evade the blockade of Iranian ports. Now, all of this is the ceasefire between Iran and the U.S. is set to end tomorrow. The president, Donald Trump, says he feels no pressure to end the war unless Iran agrees to his terms. The president also said it's highly unlikely to renew this ceasefire. Now, Pakistan is preparing for a new round of talks to be held in Islamabad. It's unclear if the U.S. and Iran will even show up to these. Iranian officials haven't publicly committed to attending, and Vice President J.D. Vance's departure for Pakistan has now been delayed. Meantime, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, making a major medical announcement for military members today, saying they will no longer be required to get a flu shot. That change effective immediately. He said military members who believe the flu vaccine is in their best interest can still get the vaccine, but others won't be forced to do so. Okay, with all that being covered, He's been waiting patiently. So let's bring in meteorologist Keith Marler here to discuss. I guess he needed more drama in the forecast to be at the top of the show rather than 10 minutes in. But you know what? That's okay.
I
right?
don't mind easygoing weather.
Yeah, I know. I know you like that. You can just slide on in.
We get the little
do your chat.
Gilligan and Skipper weather cots, weather hammocks. Just kind of lay back and enjoy the afternoon and into the evening, and just kind of it all blends in together because today is the Goldilocks zone of weather.
It really is.
Yeah, because it's not too hot, it's not too cold. Everything inside and outside is the same. We're not buggy yet necessarily, especially over the past few mornings.
It's kind of like why people go to Hawaii. Well, for more than the temperature, obviously, but it means that Goldilocks temperature that they're often in.
If I paid Jack enough money, he would go into the swamp. Where the geese and the swans have finally come back, and the water smells, I'm pretty sure, atrocious right now. Mm-hmm. And I bet I could get him to splash enough to make some surf.
Some surf in the
swamp,
yeah.
Just in the wetland next to the house. And I could simulate Hawaii enough.
Enough?
Enough.
If you closed your eyes?
And when it's nice because the swans have come back to the swamp. So this is year 3, I guess, for them. And when they land in the swamp in the backyard, everyone leaves, which means all the geese have now migrated, literally, I guess, to the front yard.
Mm-hmm. That's not great.
No. Because now they're all over the place and all over the neighborhood. But they tend to just kind of set up shop in the front yard, in the street, along the gutter and the drainage, and they just kind of like, hey, this is where my nest is now. And it's like, dude, that's, I'm pretty sure, the middle of the road.
So you're saying you like the swans coming back, except for the fact that they evict the geese into your front yard in the road.
Well, it's all, I mean, they pick out the weeds, but they also pick out the grass. I don't know. It's,
I don't know where this is going,
problems.
but I enjoy it.
It's fun. It's a battle. It's never won, but it's something you face every. It's the spring. Yeah. This is what we do.
The rite of passage.
It's true. Yeah, it's kind of a fun little.
So where we're going from here now is we got a couple of days of this, and then cooling down a little bit, and then what's going on?
Yeah, average would be 59. We're on the edge of that.
Yep.
Average is about to hit the 60s, and look, that's where we're going. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But today, mid 70s. Enjoy it. 84 might be a little too hot for some, but if you're in western Minnesota, you're heading to the upper 80s, lower 90s tomorrow, and that comes with just a little edge of humidity, and it also comes with gusty breezes again heading into tomorrow overall, and we're going to crack that humidity as an area of low pressure approaches on Thursday. And not only do we have a chance for some showers and storms to promote that cracking of the heat and the little bit of humidity, but it also could spark off some strong to severe weather. We have our chance for level 1 and level 2 risk for severe weather across the area on Thursday, but of course we'll refine that as it gets closer to, again, that's a day 3 outlook. I mean, it's still 3 days away, but yeah, already we're 69 degrees outside right now. Our high yesterday was 64.
Wow.
So we're 5 degrees warmer than our high temperature yesterday. Most of us are about 15 to 20 degrees warmer outside right now than we were this time yesterday. And look at all those 70s all across our southern viewing area. So that's why when we talk about a high today in the mid 70s, upper 70s in southwestern Minnesota, it's so achievable because we're practically there already. But yeah, a little warmer tomorrow, but also coming with a bit of a breeze. But as that humidity level creeps up, we probably aren't going to have the bigger widespread wildfire concern that we had yesterday because that came with such low humidity levels. We'll probably still have a little bit of a fire concern tomorrow. As it is, we have a enhanced fire danger somewhat for the day to day.
Yeah, things are greening up a lot too, which is helping. I mean, obviously there's still a lot of the the dormant or dead stuff from last year, but with a lot of green coming in there, that really helps.
Always. And this, what we'll do is we need a little bit behind us, but this tends to kickstart everything along. We need a couple of good doses of rain, though, to really green things up. Maybe we'll get some decent rain on our Thursday afternoon. But that chance for some rain on Monday of next week looks more generic showery. We need some more generic kind of, hey, I'm taking a little break, getting some rainy showers going on here. We need something like that a couple of times to just kind of soak some stuff in, not these little hit and miss rain or nothing. Because even though we had storms roll through on Friday, we only picked up 1/10 of an inch of rain at the airport, and some of us didn't even see that.
Yeah, I tell you what, I could really tell when everything's starting to green up because that's when I don't have a lot of allergies. I have allergies right now.
Yeah.
And this is where they're starting, is because as soon as the grass starts growing, woo!
Yeah, I can always tell because I always think that Tom is human, Butler, because he feels something. He's like, Tom, are you emoting? And he's like, no.
It's allergies?
It's just allergies.
Okay, so he's still robotic with allergies.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. I mean, I never knew that. We'll write that down. Thank you, Keith.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it.
I don't want to leave this room now.
No, I don't blame you. A lot more to come here at All Day on this Tuesday afternoon. Coming up, a conversation with the mayor of Lakeville about a housing moratorium there as the city council keeps an eye on what's happening at the state capitol in terms of various zoning changes that may be coming and how that could affect cities with land to build. Also, we're going to be talking sports, specifically the good news from last night, which was one of our teams won, and that was the Timberwolves. So Pierre Nugent will be talking Wolves basketball when we come back. We'll take a quick break, and All Day Live will resume. All right, welcome back to All Day. Pierre Nugent standing by to talk about Timberwolves. A little bit of Wild, but a lot of Wolves here. We'll get to that in a minute. Right now, we want to go to the Capitol. This is where the governor's been meeting with legislative leaders to talk about the rest of the session. So let's listen in here with Aaron Murphy.
And we're taking action today on the floor to attack one of those drivers for people who are living in a home but get trapped by those who are wanting to raise the rent on the earth beneath their homes, and they get stuck. So I'm going to head back up. We had a good first meeting. We'll be back again tomorrow to talk about IT, and I'll see y'all soon. Thanks. Thank you.
All right, well, that was quick remarks as she came out of a meeting with legislative leaders. There is a floor session coming up here for the Senate as well, so that is underway, so we'll be keeping an eye on that, and also watching to see when the governor comes out to speak, and we'll bring you back as that warrants. All right, well, a big topic here to talk about. Lakeville leaders drawing a bit of a line in the sand, at least a temporary line in the sand. No more new home construction, at least for now. Last night, the City Council unanimously approving a pause on new construction of homes. And so right now, Lakeville Mayor Luke Hellier joining us to discuss this. Appreciate taking the time here today. And let's start here with sort of the background on what led to this vote last night. A lot of this is in response, kind of a wait and see to efforts at the legislature, where there's been a push last year and again this session to create more affordable housing in higher density. So explain how that plays into the actions in Lakeville.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on. But you're exactly correct. So the legislature the last 3-4 years has taken some efforts to try to, in their minds, create more options for housing. And cities in general across the state have kind of stuck together to say, hey, we think that there's some better solutions than what is coming out of St. Paul, for instance. And so that's kind of where we've been. This year's legislature came down with they call it a slimmed down version. Probably still has a half a dozen things that I think are probably detrimental, certainly to Lakeville and how we grow. I don't want to speak for other cities. Lakeville is unique, where we've had pretty tremendous growth in the last 4 years. In fact, we've added 7,200 people since 2020, and that's more than the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul combined. So we've seen tremendous growth. We still have a lot of land left to go, and we've had a lot of strain on our infrastructure and our schools at the same time. So the moratorium pause is two things. One is to help put ourselves on the right path to respond to what's happening in the legislature, and the other is a little bit of a breather to catch up. We did something similar in the early 90s, where we had actually a 2-year moratorium on housing construction, and it allowed the city to kind of keep pace with what was going on.
Yeah, that can put a lot of strain on the city, certainly. And we'll get to that in a moment. First, the legislative changes potentially could include forcing cities to change zoning to allow more higher density. I mean, do cities, like mayors, city councils, administrators, is that seen as potentially an overreach, or how do you interpret that when you hear things like that?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I think one of the provisions in there is it would require cities to take about a third of all their commercial land and rezone it as residential, high density residential. And we still have several hundred acres of both land zoned for high density residential and commercial. And what the value for commercial land for a city is more so for the local school districts in particular, because they're going to pay a school district a property tax, they're going to pay a city property tax, but there's no one living in the commercial district, so no one's going to the school. So it's a little bit of a bonus, which is why we've had some really good success in our industrial park, which we're very pleased about. We've had over 1 million square feet of new warehouse we've approved this year, which is a really important thing to help diversify the tax base in the city. So some cities don't really have that opportunity to still build high density, and we do. And so I think a lot of our pushback is to say the land already exists. We don't need to be turning over our commercial land to build residential there instead. We want to have as diverse of a tax base as possible, and we're lucky that we have 38 square miles of the city. And so we want to make sure that as we continue to develop, there are a lot of different types of entities paying property tax to ease the burden on the residents that do live here.
Now, during this pause, there is still construction that is going on.
Right.
There's still lots that have been approved for construction and some commercial construction as well, right?
Right. I think I need to set the expectation for people. You'll still see construction happening in the city for sure. There's about 1,300 lots that have been approved already that exist on plat maps that are still available for construction. What this moratorium does is any new project on raw land, we'll call it, is part of that moratorium. So there will still be a lot of construction that happens. It'll just come at a little bit of a slower pace to give us time to have a breather over the next year as we meet with our Planning Commission and our Economic Development Commission to really look at our map to see where we need to make some changes, if there are changes in the legislature, to react to still kind of protect how we do our zoning.
Yeah, it gives you a little kind of a breather time to be able to configure what may come out of the legislature with what you want to do. But there are advocates for housing that have been very critical of this step in Lakeville and other cities. Senator Lindsey Port of Burnsville calling what happened last night a petty stunt. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, I think what's important is over the last 10 days or so, I've had a lot of conversations offline with legislators, both our legislative delegation who's supportive of the idea of keeping local control, but then also I spent some time talking to Representative Igo. Representative Igo is from Grand Rapids. He's the House Republican author of this legislative bill. We had a really good conversation on Friday, have a really good open dialogue. I think that there's probably 4 or 5 items in his bill that cities could either be neutral on or probably go along with. And part of it is there are things that Lakeville already did. A year ago after the legislative session, I sat down with 18 different building companies in my city for over 2 hours to find out, hey, how can we do things from a permitting, fees, or regulatory standpoint to help encourage some more affordable or attainable housing. And so we took a lot of those recommendations and have implemented them already, which we're totally fine with. So again, I think at the end of the day, I think the legislature intent is they want to try to spur growth. It just has an unintended consequence on a city like Lakeville where we're having so much growth already. And we would never be able to keep up with the pace where they want to have 8 units built on a single family lot, which is just, there's just no way the infrastructure could keep up.
Yeah, and as you mentioned infrastructure, lastly, I just want to talk about how it touches on the concerns over expanding utilities, sewer lines, water lines, electrical, et cetera, and the impact on the schools. Those are those concerns that take a role here too in trying to plot this out.
They absolutely are, and it's part of the reason we've had to speed up conversations about expanding our water treatment plant. We're going to be several million gallons short per day of treated water over the next couple of years, and so we have to build for peak demand. So we've got to think about having the water treated for July, for instance. So we're looking at a $20 to $30 million expansion of our water treatment facility that goes on the property taxes. We're not getting money from the state. We're not getting money from the county. That's paid for by people who live and do work in Lakeville. And that's a pretty significant cost. And so that's just one of the overall increases we've seen in what has happened with the growth. Growth is a good thing. As they say in business, you'd rather be growing than not at all, right? And so that's okay. Growth is fine, but we just got to have the ability to manage the growth that we do have.
Yeah, you want to make sure that as that growth goes, you can handle it, whether it's from a utility school standpoint, if the zoning works for the land that you have.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll be keeping an eye on what happens at the legislature and you and other cities in your position, what you do over the next during this moratorium for you as well. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks. Appreciate
All right, there you go. The mayor of Lakeville talking about a construction housing moratorium for the next year while they kind of wait to see what happens in the legislature, how that impacts a city like theirs as they plot out how to grow with a lot of land yet to build. All right, we got to move on. We got to talk about the sports because that is more fun to talk about, especially this time of year. We're in the second season of the NBA and the NHL, and well, the NBA is the bright spot this morning for sure. The Wolves in it, tying the series last night, 119 to 114 over the Nuggets in Denver. Taking the lead in the fourth quarter. We're going to bring in Pierre Nugent here to talk about the rest of it. I don't need to go over the details of how we got there because you can do that. I do know there was a, let's see, I was watching the Wild game and I was trying
So was I. I was watching both.
I know, well,
Yeah.
it's like so hard to try to keep track of everything
Sure.
here. But in terms of, Pierre, hold that thought.
We need to, yeah.
Governor Tim Walz now addressing the media after meeting with legislative leaders at the Capitol.
Budget negotiations, it takes a little bit of time to ground everybody in common budget, where we're at, what the numbers look like. This one is a bit challenging because of the incredible volatility we're seeing in the economy, but also in decisions, whether it's the war in Iran. We saw inflation move from 2.7 to 3.2%. What that means on budgeting inflations is $500 million just in a small slice when these things come out. So we spent the time talking about both budgeting situation now, then long-term trends, which last time was the discussion. And again, I think it did not get the credit it deserved, being the legislature and all the work we did together in reducing that structural imbalance that leaves $377 million on the bottom line in 28-29 and $3.7 billion in the current biennium. So my budget's been out for a few months now. The legislature's getting to the point where they all need to put a budget out. Then what we end up doing is we put those side by side. We start working it through. There's a lot of really positive signs, though I really am grateful to the House passed unanimously some of these payment withholding language that allows us to get more at the tools we needed on the fraud pieces so that we can both do payment withholdings ahead of time, but continue on with the work we're doing, making sure we're bringing those folks to accountability. And then, of course, a big priority for everyone is both capital security for the public and security of those members, where I think there's a lot of commonality. So still dealing with that, I think the nature of the volatility and a non-budget year, I'm just going to caution again, the fiscal responsibility and the fiscal constraint is still my message to them, that I'm not going to sign anything that doesn't reduce that structural imbalance even more, because we can see the trend lines. But good, productive meeting, more work to be done. We're probably, I would guess, we'll probably have a couple more of these informational sessions, and then once those committees do their work, we'll try and set joint targets. And of course, the goal is to try and do those somewhere around before or at fishing opener, and then wrap things up. But overall, very good. It's good to see the folks in here. And then, of course, the final thing we usually do on these even-numbered years is a bonding bill. And I think everybody wants to see that done. A little difference on how big it is, but my goal, once again, is we're one of 13 states that are AAA bond rated. We're one of 13 states that have the most fiscally secure budgeting in state government, and we want to continue to do that. So grateful.
Governor, on HCMC, that's another issue.
Yeah.
A lot of leaders say is on their to-do list.
Yes.
Your view on that, in terms of there's a couple different proposals out there.
Yeah.
The steps and the details.
No, thank you for bringing that up too. That was brought up in there, that HCMC, which again I think is a real good sign that there's a lot of positive agreement that is an incredibly important asset. I think we're still, and I feel a little better than I did 10 days ago, but there's still more work to be done. I think the first thing we need to do is truly identify what the entire problem there is and how we get it, and I think that's bipartisan agreement. So it was good to see in there. I do think that's something that is outside the budget that we have right now, that I am certainly willing that we need to bring that back in. And then the question got the broader issue around healthcare in general. The great uncertainty for us is the withholding that's happening on the Medicaid dollars to get that out there. I would argue that there's some really good stuff happening there. It looks like what was asked by the federal government and Dr. Oz, that we met that. And in fact, I think we're doing so good on that work on our revalidation, is that Minnesota was asked to do the revalidation. We were already doing it. We're moving ahead. We submitted that. It looks like, I think by all means we should get our money back. but it looks like the federal government is now going to require all 49 other states to do revalidation, because what's come out of our fraud fight is that we have moved to the front on some of that prevention, and I think it's going to be replicated in the other states. But it's a great question. It would be I would anticipate that there will be something done around HCMC. At this point in time, I can't tell you. I'm not certain I know the extent of the problem. So.
Has Minnesota gotten that Medicare revalidation letter yet?
We have not. We have not. I think it's a good sign, though, that they are taking what we're doing, and we've said this all along. Every state has this issue. In fact, many states are in a situation that's worse because our error rates are some of the lowest, but there was work to be done. It's good stuff, and now they're going to require that of other states.
Governor, how does it comparative? You've done this now 7 times. You have certain faces in the room. How does this feel different than the other years?
It feels good. I said, I've learned in this. I came in, the first year, and like the first time we had one of these meetings, I'm like, hell, we'll be done next week. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of personalities. There's a lot of, the committees have to work. Look, I'm not going to kid you. It looks like there's a little tension. The House was able to unanimously pass payment withholding language, and I don't yet have a hearing scheduled in the Senate, which tells you there's some tension going on there a little bit. With that being said, I think there is agreement that it's a volatile budget year. Minnesota's budget is in a solid place. We did and bit the bullet and did heavy lift for people in Minnesota last year to ensure programs were able to be funded, but sustainability of that. I will note that in the projected budgeting, human services spending surpasses education for the first time in state history. And that was a lot of the talk last year about rebalancing the state budget. But in question, Mary, it was good. There's good camaraderie. Look, I think Minnesota still does this. I get it. It is so poisonous in D.C., and the language every day is so poisonous, and I get in part of that. Here, it still seems like state government is functioning as it did last time, because that budget, I've said this, in all the years I've done this, in the 20 years of being in, I thought reaching a budget agreement last May was some of the finest work I had seen, and it proved that it put us in an incredible spot, because if you looked at the numbers, had we not adjusted to it, we would have been setting at a pretty massive structural imbalance in these 2 bienniums. So overall good. It'll be tough in the next few weeks because we're going to have to come to some decisions, but I'm going to hold out pretty firmly, and it seems like this should be pretty bipartisan. Fiscal stability, fiscal responsibility, and protecting ourselves from the volatility that I think is still coming is really important. So,
as far as OIG goes, that's moving in the House now. What do you want to see when that bill hits your desk?
I think just so it's functional, we agree with it, and I think there's many pieces that go with this. I think it's just the functionality of listening to the professionals, that where we have the OIG, where we have the BCA. We were for it last time. I think there's some different proposals on it. We'll certainly sign it when it gets to us. I think they're still working out the details. But the good news in all of this is that you saw with Tim O'Malley's report, this is stuff that goes back decades. The one good part about this is that it's all out in the open. It's being handled. What I know is that if you're not hearing about fraud and nobody's doing it, I will guarantee you that doesn't mean that it's not happening, both in the private sector or the public sector. So you're going to just continue to see people be arrested, people to go forward. I think what's changed is this focus on proactive. That's why that payment withholding, I can't stress enough how important that is, because the minute our algorithms and the new work we put in spots that, we can save the money in the first place.
Have you had any conversation about the cost of the OIG? There was a fiscal note that came out that said that just to set it up could be $16 million over the rest of the
there's some
the next, and then even more costs. Like, is there room to actually pay for this?
Well, I look, we haven't got all of this out there, but there is savings in fraud prevention, obviously, and how do you budget for that? I think one of the issues I have, if you're going to set up the IG, you need to fund it accordingly. You can't do it on the cheap and underfund the number of people you have. That's one of the things that I think there's a fear of a little bit of redundancy, just for the sake of saying we have a central IG. All I care about is everything we do, if it reduces fraud and smooths legitimate payments to people who need it, because I will never back off of, we're not stopping these programs that improve people's lives, but we have to strike that proper balance. So no, not yet, but it's a good question and that has not been brought up yet.
Governor, how helpful are you on some of the DFL priorities at this point, like responding to ICE?
Well, I still am, and in here, at this point in time, it's to try and start to move us towards common ground. I recognize there are things in there that were not brought up by the Republicans that are still going to be brought up. The issue on responding to Metro Surge is deeply important to all of us, and for me personally, the Minnesota and the American, I would argue the American shame of letting anything around guns just sail. I watched the news this weekend for probably 2 hours before a short story clip of 8 children being gunned down was kind of just a blurb afterwards or whatever. I am adamant that we still can move. My God, is a minimum safe storage and things. So I'm still hopeful, but look, I'm a realist. It's 67-67. Republicans have made it clear they don't want to touch anything on guns. We still have Republican leadership, very proud of what ICE did here, very unapologetic about what happened. That's a problem. So that's part of the politics here of the nuts and bolts that need to get done. Still discussing these major differences. We did it last year, and so those things are still very much alive, and we'll see in the negotiations where we get. Got time for a couple more? Yeah.
Do you support looking to bonding money for things like county infrastructure, the tech build-outs, or for school safety?
Yes, I think so, and I say that, prefaced in making sure it's fiscally responsible and we're able to do it. And I will credit Representative Torkelson has been really great on this issue of IT, and this is an important one to me. I was in Congress when we did the IT modernization at the VA. These legacy systems, and to be very candid, that's a vulnerability on fraud in our outdated IT systems. It's also an incredible burden on county employees in a lot of cases. So I do think I have a relatively, modest proposals to get at that. I think the way we're approaching it is to get a full scope of what is needed, and this is going to be a multi-year investment to upgrade that system. We have a recipe for success here in MNLARS when we came in. Remember, that was $100 million that had been dragging on. It was very contentious. Democrats and Republicans worked together, and within 18 months, we now have a very, very efficient licensing system. So the answer is yes, I'm interested in it. I feel the sense of urgency they have of investing in getting this new system, but the one thing we've learned is you can't launch a bad one. And we saw this recently, and I won't make any apologies for, we have a vendor, and I don't think this vendor's doing as quickly as they could have, but that's the way some of it works. You have to be certain before we launch them. That's the lesson we learned with MNLARS. So answer is yes.
I have a couple proposals for property tax refunds, a big one from the House GOP, but also $100 million from Senator Ostrowski. I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I'm with folks on the property tax that if trying to tackle that. I think that's why we're trying to figure out, and this was a conversation we had in there, and there's some very interesting charts. One of the reasons Minnesota has had such stable budgets and been AAA bond rating is our revenue sources have been very stable. That's starting to change. And when those revenue sources change, it starts to revert back to the property taxes, and they get hit on that. I'm open to where they're hearing about some of these things. I think that's probably a budget year situation. I think a lot of that is messaging around this, but I do think the property, I've said this for years. You have people who come to this place, they brag about being fiscally conservative. They vote against anything on revenues, and that means schools, water treatment, roads end up getting kicked back down to the local level. This is how you create states that are inequitable. Richer areas have more money. I feel a sense of responsibility that all of us should help build water treatment plants in our smaller communities together because we benefit from them. So I think it's probably a broader discussion. I don't think you'll probably get anything tackled around that, but some of these things are conversations that will eventually get there. I'll go to Eric. Go two more here. Go ahead.
St. Paul Arena got a shot?
Pardon me?
St. Paul Arena renovation?
Look, and again, I will say this from my perspective on this. I am supportive of it, starting with Mayor Carter and Craig Leopold when they came and presented of what needed to be done there, and now Mayor Herr. I'm supportive of what they're doing. I think it makes right sense. I don't feel like there's a big appetite amongst people. And I've had this conversation with all of our professional sports teams in the university. We got to have a long-term plan on how we think about infrastructure in these arenas. I've always said that I thought we should all get together and agree that we've got a 30-year plan and when your rotation comes up, because if you're lucky enough to come and ask for an arena when we're in a budget surplus, you might get it. If we're in a volatile time, you don't get it. But as far as the concept of what it would help for downtown St. Paul, I think Mayor Herr and Mr. Leopold are right about this. I agree with them. I think it's going to be a tough lift in a non-budget year to be able to get that done. But once again, this is probably a multi-year approach.
Governor, you've got 3.5 weeks left in your last legislative session. What's the single most important thing that you think you can do, and also what Prince Song is?
What I would say for me is this fiscal responsibility, and look, I'd be candid with all of you, so many reasons the fraud thing cuts so deep. The one thing is I pride myself, and I was in Congress, and if you look back at my record of being very fiscally responsible, fiscally conservative, I do that in my own private life, and I've done it in many of these budgetings. And so I think that piece of it, of putting Minnesota in a strong position to ensure those investments that we made in education, in infrastructure, in safety, are able to continue on. So I think that's where it'd be, where it's at. And the question was on Prince?
He died 10 years ago.
Yeah, God. I feel like, I thought about this a couple times, said it this winter. I wonder how Metro Surge and things would have been different if he were still alive, because you saw some of the voices that were speak up on that. So I'm a 1999 guy still, because I'm old enough that it still seems like it's the future, and that's what's really something. So thank you all. Get some more work done. So, thank you.
All right, Governor Tim Walz ending a wide-ranging Q&A session with the media at the state capitol, talking about what's his favorite Prince song, 1999, here on this anniversary, 10-year anniversary of Prince's death. A lot of other topics discussed in there. Fraud, certainly a big one, and talking about also Hennepin County Medical Center and funding to try to make sure that that stays solvent. So a lot to unpack in that one as this session now winds down here, being done in about a month from now. Speaking of Prince, we're going to get to Pierre Nugent and the Wolves in the Wild here still yet. He's patiently hanging on, but we're going to go out to Paisley Park next, where Lauren Andrego has been patiently waiting to talk about how this 10-year anniversary is being honored at Paisley Park. And we're going to do that right after this break on All Day Live.
Today.
Welcome back to All Day Live. Rob Olson sitting in today. Kind of a somber anniversary today, because it's hard to believe it's been this much time, but 10 years to the day since we lost Prince, who died at Paisley Park on April 21st, 2016. So a decade later, his legacy still very much lives on. The fan base still is passionate about it. And today, at Paisley Park, an entire day dedicated to remembering the artist and his music, and that's where Lauren Andrego is live in Chanhassen, patiently waiting. Sorry for the delay here with live events, Lauren, but
No, it's okay.
Appreciate it.
Rob, I am jamming out to Prince with a bunch of Prince fans. There's nowhere I'd rather be spending this afternoon today at NPG Music Club inside Paisley Park. It's a very special room if you haven't visited before. 65,000 square feet, or 6,500. It used to be a space where they held concerts, where Prince held concerts for some very lucky exclusive groups. But over the last 10 years, it has become a museum of sorts, a space where people can come and reflect on Prince's memory, watch some music videos, listen to some music, and hang out with other Prince fans. They've opened Paisley Park up to the public today to remember, and that's who you're seeing here today. Minnesotans from all over the state, people from all over the country. We met some folks from Missouri. We saw folks from Texas here. And if you would believe it, people are coming in from all over the world. So I want to introduce you to one of these fans right now. Her name is Astrid. I met her a couple of minutes ago. And Astrid, where are you visiting from this week?
I'm visiting from the Netherlands.
Wow. And this is not your first time visiting Paisley Park?
No, it's my 5th time.
What keeps you coming out?
Prince? Nothing more.
What do you love about Prince that you've made several international trips to remember him?
He brought so many people together after his passing, and I love being a part of that community.
You're here on a very special anniversary celebration. You'll be here all night. What are you most looking forward to on this trip?
Just meeting other friends.
Yeah. A lot of Prince fans here. It's a very unique atmosphere. You're all decked out. What do you think about Prince is so special that keeps people coming back to celebrate him 10 years after his death?
Oh my God. I don't know, his music, his personality, love for one another.
Yeah, totally.
That's something he brought through the world, and the fans keep doing that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Astrid, love your purple glasses. Have fun tonight. Now, I know what you're thinking. Astrid's got to have traveled farther than anybody here for this celebration. You'd be wrong. I got to introduce you to Lucy. Lucy, where are you traveling from this week?
Sydney, Australia.
Sydney, Australia. This is your first time at Paisley Park. What do you think of it so far?
It's surreal, amazing, and just surreal, emotional. There's a lot to take in, a lot of fans around, just heaps to, it's a very emotional experience.
Yeah. This is a very special trip that you're on. You're in the United States for a couple of months. You will be coming back here for the Prince celebration in June, and you've been planning this trip for several years.
Yeah, for several years, especially. I think I missed the 5 year because it was COVID, so I thought the next anniversary is a milestone, the 10 year. It was the best way to do it, so yeah.
What do you love about Prince?
Just everything. He stood firm to what he believed, and he paved the way for artists today to get their masters. People didn't understand at the time what he was doing with the symbol, but he had a reason for doing it, and people today understand that instead of what they thought back then. So he stood to what he firmed to believe.
Yeah. Lucy, I can hear you getting a little bit emotional as we talk about Prince. It's a very special place to be here today. A lot of people mourning, thinking about what they love about Prince. You were telling me that you got to see him perform in Australia. When you think about that night at that concert, what do you think about? What are your memories?
My memories are, his impromptu, one of the concerts me and my sister we went twice in one period in 2014, and the lights went out and everyone left except about 200 people, and I just remember it was 6 months after an operation. I just rushed down, climbed on a cocktail chair. He came back out to do a couple of the tracks when the lights came back out, and no one knew that he was doing that, and that was him. He never stuck to a plan. He did everything different. Not one concert was the same except the last ones probably, but they were all changed up. So yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for your time today, and safe travels as you continue around the United States. I hope you have fun tonight. Rob, Lucy, and Astrid and all of these fans will be back here for a candlelight vigil tonight. They'll also be screening his concert movie, but it's a very special place here, Paisley Park, which you can come take a tour anytime. But here on this day, the super fans are remembering his legacy and jamming out here in a very, very cool space.
Yeah, that is remarkable. I know I was out there 10 years ago today, and in the days afterwards as well, and you see the same sort of thing where people are coming from all over the place, and that really then unites them with each other. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was actually my first breaking news as a college student. I was in my college newsroom and didn't understand the international impact that Prince had until we started seeing news crews from all over the country and all over the world covering this. So I will never forget where I was when I learned about this news, and I think everyone else here agrees. It was a day we'll never forget.
Yeah, and Paisley Park kind of it reminds you that it's much like Graceland in Memphis, where people just kind of make a pilgrimage there.
Mm-hmm. A destination, absolutely.
Yeah. Lauren, thank you. Thanks for hanging on. Enjoy it out there.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. All right, got to take a quick break here. We'll have more discussion about Prince coming up later in the show, too, with a University of Minnesota professor who teaches a class about Prince and about his social impact, specifically during the 80s. But we're going to talk Wolves and Wild coming up next with Pierre Nugent, who's been so patiently hanging on here, too. We'll be right back. Welcome back to All Day Live here. Pierre Nugent has been patiently waiting by to talk about Wolves and why. We started this conversation about the Timberwolves game last night and got interrupted. Understandable, that's the way things work.
But I'll accept the governor's apology when he gets around to calling me, so yeah.
I'm sure that's forthcoming. The Wolves game last night after game one, you know, and again, it's playoffs. You never know which, I mean, we saw last year where it bounced, I mean,
absolutely.
a lot. The Wolves, let's see, dominated the second quarter, and then Denver went on a run in the third quarter, setting up a pretty dramatic fourth quarter.
This game was an absolute roller coaster ride, and by the end of the game, I was, you know, tweeting online. I was saying to everybody, this game was absolutely awesome. It was awesome. It had just about everything, you know, twists and turns, and guys stepping up in big moments. And yeah, at the end of the first quarter, when you saw Minnesota give up 39 in that first quarter, you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself, well, this team just didn't check in today.
Okay.
I think there was probably a lot of people thinking, well, this game is probably already going to be over. I mean, you come out looking like that in the first quarter, how are you going to be able to rebound and recover on the road? Not only did they do that, they wrestled control of the game away in that second quarter. They let go of the rope a little bit at the end of that second quarter, which allowed Denver to tie the game on that half-court shot by Jamal Murray. But ever since then, it was a little bit of a back and forth. Yeah, they got behind a little bit in the third quarter, but then in the fourth, I mean, this team found a recipe in terms of attacking the lane and getting to the rim, even though they shot the ball great from three last night as well. But the aggressiveness of getting to the rim and attacking the paint, I think, was a great move by Chris Finch to tell his guys, listen, defensively, Denver is not exactly the best team in the world. You probably heard that from Jaden McDaniels at the end of the game last night. That might be a little bit of bulletin board material for Denver going into game 3. But he's not wrong in what he's saying. I mean, defensively, Denver is a group that ranked in the bottom third of the league all year long. So Minnesota found a formula that worked well. Anthony Edwards gutted through the knee injury that he's battling through, that runner's knee. 30 points on the night for Anthony Edwards. Last night just had about everything you could want from a playoff game between the Wolves and the Nuggets. It was great.
What do you think the Wolves learned from game 1 that they applied in game 2?
Well, I think one of the things, first and foremost, is, like we just mentioned, getting to the rim a lot more and really challenging Denver in the paint, because Denver doesn't seem to want to put up much of a fight defensively. I think that's where I think Minnesota is really looking to probably take advantage going forward. One thing that I think we need to point out, too, is even though Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards both had terrific games last night by their own standards, Dante DiVincenzo is shooting the ball terrifically in the first 2 games of this series. His shot has been inconsistent this year, but through the first 2 games, Dante DiVincenzo is shooting the 3-ball really well. He's stuffing the stat sheet. He's everywhere. Rudy Gobert only scores 2 points last night. Doesn't even have a block in the game. But after the game, you heard Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle talking about Rudy Gobert's defensive impact and the way he was able to limit Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, they gave him a lot of props,
especially in that fourth quarter. He was absolutely sensational defensively one-on-one against Nikola Jokic. And Anthony Edwards said, he joked about it, we're not even going to come and double team. We're not even going to bring the double team to a guy like Nikola Jokic because we trust Rudy Gobert to do his job one-on-one against Nikola Jokic, and he rose to the occasion last night.
All right, so the Wolves back at home now on Thursday night, which will be fun. And this looks like it's shaping up to be a pretty hard to know which way this series is going to go.
It really is, and I think I joked with people online last night. Strap in, we're in for a long haul here. I would be shocked if this series goes anything less than 6 games. We might have another 7-game series on our hands, the kind of series that we saw 2 years ago in the Western Conference semifinals. But yeah, it really is hard to really know which direction this series is going to swing. Now the Wolves have their own home court advantage after stealing game 2. So if Minnesota can find a way to defend home court and go back to Denver, possibly up 3-1, you're in full control of this series. We'll see how it goes.
All right, Minnesota Wild coming home to play at Grand Casino Arena tomorrow night in St. Paul. Tied the series 1-1. They dominated game 1 last night. Then they seem to be playing from behind pretty much most of the game.
Yeah, in last night's game, there's no Matt Zuccarello. Obviously, he's out. We don't know how much longer Matt Zuccarello is going to be out. If he's going to be out a longer period of time, I think that could spell a little bit of trouble for the Wild. Kirill Kaprizov last night, only 2 shots on net. Dallas really did a great job bottling him up. So I think in game 1, Minnesota took advantage of their power play opportunities. They didn't do that in game 2. Dallas was the one. It was a little bit of a flip script. Dallas didn't really take advantage of their power play opportunities. I think they did have 1 power play goal in game 1. 2 power play goals last night. So Jake Ottinger, much better last night in that. Much better in that last night. So I think this series is about where we expected it to be. And I think this is another series, kind of like the Wolves and the Wild. I'm not really sure which way this is going to swing. But again, I would be shocked if it's anything less than 6 games. It could very well be another 7-game series.
The difference here, too, last night, you mentioned Kirill Kaprizov. He was at times, I wouldn't say invisible, but you just didn't notice the impact from him. They clearly found a way to shut him down.
Yeah, and you hear the cliche oftentimes, your best players need to be your best players. And we saw that in Game 1 with Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy. Kind of quiet, like you said. It was a quiet night for some of those guys. And credit to Dallas, they made the adjustments they needed to make to try to contain some of the big players for Minnesota. Now it's the Wild's turn to reverse course and kind of figure out how they get back on track here in Game 3.
And Jesper Alstead, we got to wrap this up. But I would say he looked pretty good in goal.
Still looked pretty good, yeah.
There was one goal that bounced off the end boards back onto him, and then in the goal.
Unlucky,
but kind of a fluke. That's why you shoot those at the end boards for the rebound, because you never know where it's going to go.
No doubt about it.
But that was one that.
And to your point too. I don't think, if anybody's wondering out there, I don't think there's any need for a goaltender change with the way Jesper Alstead has been playing. I fully expect him to be the starter for Game 3 and beyond, really, unless his game completely
We'll see how this goes. It got chippy again last night.
It's going to be a great series.
It's going to continue. Pierre, thanks so much. We're going to take a break. A lot more to come here on All Day Live. We'll be right back. Welcome back to All Day Live. Rob Olson at the desk here today. A few minutes ago, we brought you live from Paisley Park, where Lauren Andrego is showing how people are honoring and coming from around the world to honor together this 10th anniversary of the death of Prince, what it means to so many people, the impact he made on their lives through his music and through the friendships they've made through it. Certainly a huge influential musician with a massive legacy in Minneapolis and around the world. A big impact, though, here in his home state. A University of Minnesota professor began teaching a course right around the time when Prince died 10 years ago on that impact. His goal not to just create Prince fans, but help students understand why Prince's legacy matters, his impact on sort of the social fabric here. It began being offered just once a year. It's gained a lot of popularity. Professor Elliot Payne has begun offering fall and spring semester courses, and he joins us now. Hello, thank you for being with us today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Give me the background here. I read, some of this about how you came to offer this course 10 years ago. So sort of the origins of it and what it became once you started teaching it.
Yeah, no, fantastic question. So I moved here to the University of Minnesota, to the Twin Cities in 2014. I am a scholar of U.S. popular culture. And part of that was offering a class that was all about popular culture in the, let's say, last 50, 60 years of really sort of the U.S. And as I was creating the syllabus of that class, when I got to the 1980s, I started to think about the importance of music and culture in the 1980s and started to realize, of course, that I am here in the Twin Cities, obviously Minneapolis being the home of Prince. And so I thought I could probably create a whole course that's fully about Prince in Minneapolis in the 1980s. And so I proposed that course, and that course got approved to be taught in the 2015-2016 academic year. And so the first time that I taught it was in spring of 2016. There were 20 students in that class at the time. It has increased now to 130 in terms of this academic year. And for actually next academic year in the fall, we're hoping to actually surpass that number. We've capped enrollment at 180 students.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's amazing. And when you think, what's amazing is that these are students who were quite young 10 years ago when Prince passed away, and you're talking about a history going back into the 1980s here. So to stir that much interest among people who were alive for a portion of Prince's career is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, no, it totally is. And I always ask students at the start of the class to really explain to me, tell me a little bit more about themselves and why they're interested in taking the class. And so many students, an overwhelming, I think, sort of majority of those students are saying that they're interested in taking the class because their parents love Prince, or their older kind of siblings, someone in their lives who they actually really love deeply cares a lot about Prince, and they're curious to know why. Why does Prince have such an effect on their parents, on their loved ones? Why he meant so much to them? And so students are coming out of it from a different generation, but a really genuine kind of curiosity there that I really, really love to actually respect and to help students better understand that.
Yeah, and what's interesting is part of what you teach is sort of the impact of Prince in the 1980s, sort of against the cultural fabric of the time, the way it related to his lyrics, relating to some of the, how do I say this, against the backdrop of kind of a crackdown on pornography and other sexual issues in the public arena in the 1980s. And here comes Prince kind of pushing some of those norms and language in his music. I mean, what are you trying to examine there?
Yeah, no, exactly what you're actually hitting at is that very much in the 1980s, we saw a particular kind of, I think, sort of policing around norms of gender, norms of sexuality, norms of race. And so one of the fascinating things that happens when we think about the music of Prince is that Prince does not want to conform to those sets of norms. He does not want to be boxed in, right? Rather, a lot of his music, a lot of the lyrics, the way in which he actually composed a group like The Revolution was very much about pushing up against those kinds of norms around race, around gender, around sexuality. So we think about his obviously sort of visual play with gender and sexuality in terms of his dress, but also lyrically. We think about also how Prince is also breaking sets of norms or expectations around how a black man should look like, speak like, sing like, what kind of music could actually get produced. And so Prince is this really boundary transgressive kind of artist, and I wanted students to kind of understand that really actually mattered, and that really was a sense of affirmation for so many who were also not living within these kinds of boundaries, who were very much exceeding and exploding them. That Prince became somewhat of an idol, someone who they could look to, someone who was very affirming for them.
Yeah, it's very similar to how people look at Elvis in the context of the late 1950s, or the Beatles in the context of the early 1960s, or mid to late 60s too, as they changed. Part of the homework here then is that you have students, they have to listen to a lot of Prince music here, quite a big part of his catalog, right? Especially his solo work.
That's correct. Yeah, we listened to every solo album that Prince actually released during the 1980s. So starting with Dirty Mind and then ending with the Batman soundtrack. But we also listened to a lot of associated acts by Prince, folks like Vanity 6, folks like Sheila E., folks like The Family, and very much The Time as well.
And then in the end, you have them sort of compare and contrast that with work then from the 90s.
Yes, exactly. So, this is a very 1980s based course, but I want their knowledge to expand really beyond the 1980s. I want them to think about Prince's music after. We know so much, I think, about Prince's music in the 1980s, or at least the big kinds of hits. But I want students to kind of expand their knowledge beyond that. So for their final, they have to choose an album that Prince released in the 1990s or the 2000s and do a kind of compare and contrast. How do those albums stack up? How do they align? What are the ways in which Prince might be working through similar ideas, but updating them for updating them in terms of the time? And so that's the kind of exercise there, is really training them to think critically about music, almost seeing them as really sort of music critics to see themselves as really sort of music critics in themselves, and to therefore kind of expand their own kind of knowledge of Prince. And we've spent however many weeks, 14 weeks, learning about Prince in the 1980s. Now it's your job to think about what Prince in the 1990s looks like, what Prince in the 2000s looks like, and what becomes your own personal kind of evaluation. And again, sort of comparing and contrasting those kinds of albums.
Yeah, very interesting looking at it in the whole kind of historical, cultural, sociological context of the music. Lastly, here on this day, since, obviously you're very invested in the topic of this, again, transformative musical figure, how do you honor this day yourself, this 10-year anniversary?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I feel like every year I do something similar where obviously I spend time listening to Prince's music, but I also spend a lot of time supporting very much the kind of creative arts. That's something that I also talk about a little bit in my class, but something that I think is really important when we think about the legacy of Prince. Yes, we know about what a great kind of musician he was, a singer-songwriter, but he was someone who also supported dance, who supported theater, who supported very much fashion and very much the visual arts. And so I also use this time on this day every year, and especially now, to also make other sets of contributions when it comes to art, right? So that might be going to Mia, that might be going to the Walker, right? Those kinds of things. But really thinking about engaging with and supporting the arts, I think is a kind of lasting legacy of Prince that I think we should all very much embrace.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Professor Elliot Powell at the University of Minnesota. Fascinating topic, and fascinating that something that you kind of dreamed up just over a decade ago has really taken off and spurred so much interest.
Sure. Thank you so much.
All right, there you go. Professor Elliot Powell at the University of Minnesota on this 10-year anniversary of Prince, talking about his class. Again, remarkable when you think about college students who, Prince has been gone for 10 years. So these are kids learning about the history of the 80s, 90s, and beyond, and the impact here. All right, as we move on right now, I guess, we want to pop in over to the state capitol, Amber. Is that where we're going right now? Yeah, the state Senate floor. They've been meeting since 11 a.m. They spent more than an hour on animal cruelty legislation, now discussing items within the omnibus public safety package, discussing fireworks and audible devices right now. We're going to listen in as they, again, you're seeing a lot more floor sessions now than committee hearings as they try to really get this legislation towards the finish line now in a few weeks. Let's listen in.
Report the amendment to the amendment.
Senator Lucero moves to amend the Rarick A50 amendment to Senate File number 4760 as follows. Page 1, delete fireworks and insert. This is the A52 amendment.
Senator Lucero to the A52 amendment, amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. So one of the things that stuck out at me years ago in the Public Safety Committee, the then chair was in favor of the Rarick bill. And he termed it, and I don't know if I have it 100% accurate, but I'm very, very close, if not exactly identical. He called it the Freedom and Fun Rarick bill. So I want to amend this language by labeling this section of law the Freedom and Fun Act. Why do I want to do that? How ironic it is that in the 250th year of our great country that is strongly associated on Independence Day of firing off fireworks in celebration of our great independence, that on our 250th year anniversary of our great republic, that the government of the state of Minnesota is going to prohibit citizens from having freedom and fun to participate by lighting off their own fireworks. So with that, let's appropriately label this, inspired by the former chair of the House Public Safety Committee, the Freedom and Fun Act. I encourage a green vote.
Senator Rarick to the A52 amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. I will let the members decide if this should go on or not. It does not matter to me one way or the other.
Senator Hoffman, were you standing to be recognized? Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do not vote for this amendment to the amendment or the amendment, and that's all I'm going to say. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion? A roll call was requested for the amendment to the amendment.
All right, listening in on the Senate floor session right now. There's a committee hearing that's just getting underway that we're going to take you to here probably in a few minutes. Is the House Committee on Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight is getting underway at the Capitol. We got to take a break though, but we got to talk first about what we're expecting in the weather as it's warming up nicely over the next few days. A little bit of chance of some thunderstorms coming up here midweek. Here's meteorologist Keith Marler.
Man, the only thing wrong with our Monday weather was the fact that I guess it was on a Monday more than anything else, coming off of a cooler weekend when the 40s, yesterday's 60s were much welcome. It came with a bit of a breeze that led to our fire concerns. We talked about that 24 hours ago when we had our wildfires popping up on the sides of roads, etc. But that's been tamped down as our breezes they've gone completely quiet, but our winds are only around 5 miles per hour or so. So for today, we're living in the Goldilocks zone. It's not too hot, it's not too cool. It's just right for us with highs in those low to mid 70s this afternoon. It's the indoor-outdoor weather, the room temperature weather, where everything's just kind of peaceful and quiet with dew points that are mainly in the 30s to right around 40 today. You can't really go wrong with that from a weather perspective. Now, perhaps tomorrow is a bit too hot for some. Not a record here in the metro. Records are around 90. 95 today is our record. Tomorrow's record is 90, but we're going for the low to mid 80s tomorrow. It comes with a bit of a breeze again. That same breeze gets gusty in western Minnesota. And okay, that's going to send you to the 90s in western parts of the state overall. Also with low to manageable levels of humidity. You'll notice it perhaps, but it's not going to be uncomfortable from a humidity standpoint. The heat, well, that's your tolerance level, certainly. But that humidity will continue to build into the day on Thursday, and that, as an area of low pressure approaches, that's going to fire off some stronger storms. We're already looking at a low in level 1 and level 2 threat across the area for our storms that fire on Thursday proper. How are we getting there? Well, for today, we're warm, that's for sure. Mid 70s for highs, about 15 degrees above average. We'll tease the mid to upper 70s in western Minnesota. We'll fall off to the 60s and ultimately a few 50s on the Canadian border. Very light to non-existent breezes for the day today, only around 5 miles per hour. Tomorrow, even warmer. I didn't want to go with flat out hot in the metro, low 80s, you could argue, but all right, hot in western Minnesota as you get to the 90s, but with tolerable or barely noticeable levels of humidity. And then we'll go for a dew point that teases 60 on Wednesday. Still warm, even though the cloud cover increases. Southern flow picks up the pace even more so. We'll go for increasing clouds, noticeable humidity, and then we'll fire off the showers and storms as we go on into our Thursday afternoon and Thursday night. And it's this swath, the early look, gives us a level 1 and level 2 risk for severe weather. Again, we'll refine that as we get closer to it. This is a day 3 assessment. Again, not today, not tomorrow, but a Thursday assessment for our severe weather risk coming on into those storms on Thursday. For today, though, feeling comfortable, plenty of blue sky, beautiful warm sunshine. Everything is just right for us in the world of weather. Overnight tonight, overnight lows in the upper 40s, even some lower 50s for parts of the state. Then for tomorrow, we pick up the breeze a bit, turning gusty in western Minnesota. So whereas we're looking at highs in the mid 80s, low to mid 80s in the metro, western Minnesota will tease those 90s as those dew points slowly rise through the day, leaving us with a humid day on Thursday. That morning starts in the 60s, heads to the middle 70s. It'll feel more like summer with scattered showers and thunderstorms possible, especially in the afternoon. And again, that could lead to that level 1 and 2 risk for severe weather. On the backside of that, back to average we go. Sunshine to partly cloudy Friday, Saturday, Sunday with highs in the more seasonable lower 60s and a chance for some showers and upper 50s into the early days of next week.
Welcome back to All Day Live here on this Tuesday. We're going to pop back over to the Capitol here for a few minutes. The House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Policy Committee is meeting right now, again, discussing fraud, specifically today in charter school systems in Minnesota and in feeding our future. Those are the two items on the agenda. So we're hearing from folks about concerns with charter schools, folks saying that charter schools are an important element to the education system too. So defending the role of charter schools in this as they look at fraud concerns in that system, and again feeding our future on the agenda too. So we're going to listen in for a few minutes as they discuss fraud prevention.
Schools. That has some pretty shocking information. The one that really jumped out at me is that more than half of compliance reviews conducted over several years documented significant governance problems in the charter school sector. This is not the education committee. I think we had think it was like 15 minutes last meeting. We got just a couple minutes we're going to do now. So I think number one is just to urge our colleagues in the education policy and finance areas to do some digging in this area. And I think jumping off of the terrific investigative work done by Mr. Meitrot and then the points raised by the two testifiers last time. But then just stepping back, Madam Chair, having served in the committee this whole term, this feels like another example where we've got a really important public service that has been privatized. I understand charter schools are public schools, but have been they're being delivered by outside entities. That's a thing that we can be discussing and sorting through. But then when we have the oversight get privatized as well, it feels like that's when we've especially gotten into trouble. I think that's true, and I can see some colleagues nodding as well. That's been true in a number of the areas that we've examined as a committee. And I assume that part of the point of this committee is to look at sort of themes and areas we want to direct our colleagues in the policy committees as to how they should be looking at things. And it does seem like one thing we really want to ask them to look at is, hey, first, are you privatizing public services, and exactly what is the purpose of that? Because there's a certain lack of accountability. We are not aware of wrongdoing being committed by public employees or within public agencies. But then, even if you're doing that, are you then outsourcing the oversight of that to, in this case, advisors? And what is the reason for that? Because I think we've seen over and over again that there are big concerns. And so those are themes that I think are particularly concerning to me as we examine charter schools and as we kind of fit it into the discussions we've had in other areas as well. And so I appreciate the time, Madam Chair. Wish we could add more, but I do appreciate the willingness to bring this topic up. And it's clearly one we should continue to examine as a body more broadly. Thank you.
Thank you, Lead Pinto. And Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to pick up where Lee Pinto left off, I think as we think about this, our 2 years together here, we have been looking at things, like I would say broad governance issues, oversight, transparency, how do we ensure that the systems that are set up have the right incentive structures. We've been looking at integrity issues, conflicts of interest, internal processes, self-dealing, and sort of things that set up or get close to self-dealing of how our system set up, and then outcomes. And I think we've also been talking about outcomes. Like we all agree that when we talk, whether we're talking about Medicaid, childcare, and I think the delivery of education, our goal should be to ensure that the Minnesotan at the end of that, in this case kids, gets in this case, high quality, transparent education, and the one that we started out when we passed laws and created the systems intending to create. And I think both the testimony we received yesterday or last week, and more importantly, I think the work that the Star Tribune and others have done have shown we have set up a system that has governance issues, integrity issues, and outcome issues. And the governance issues that we have seen set up is a lack of transparency and a lack of, to what Pinto said, to what Representative Pinto said, when we set up, and we're about to talk about Feed Our Future, which is another place where we both outsourced the provision of the services, and then Feed Our Future was actually an overseer of the provision of those services, which makes it even harder for government, who sits now 2 layers up, to actually ensure that there is transparency and integrity. And so I think, like, as we think about what we should be doing in the next set of years, and what I think the benefit of a committee like this, an oversight committee, is we can actually see across the silos of whether we're talking about education, whether we're talking about healthcare, whether we're talking about housing, and see some of the structural designs that we have built, experimented with, in some cases have been successful, in some cases, and I'd say in this case, have not. And then I think the question is, so what do we do about it? But in reading, and we would be here all day just from the set of articles and testimony we've had, but the conflicts of interest that I think we also see in other spaces, which you're providing a service and maybe you own the building and you're leasing it back to yourself, or you're providing a service and you're contracting with somebody who you have a relationship with to provide, sort of vend out. That's not I've heard about that happening in long-term care too. So when we think about the integrity pieces, I think we got to get serious about that. But I don't know how we fix just those, what happened at Hmong Academy or what happened at the Minnesota Internship Center without actually going back to this structural question of if we do not have transparency, if we do not have direct oversight, how we ensure that the long-term integrity of the provision of these services is both incentivized and then enforced. And then I think that the outcomes, and I do, as somebody who served on education finance, I know we have an education policy committee, and this is really their role. But when we look at the research that's been done, the whole idea of having an alternative.
All right, we've been listening into the House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Policy Committee here. Again, talking about failures in the charter school system and how that makes it ripe for fraud. We're also hearing people defend the charter school system here, but as they look at that is some of the oversight that needs to happen to make sure that money is spent properly. Feeding Our Futures on their agenda that they'll be talking about later. But we got to take a break. A couple other things that we're watching, though, happening right now is one is at Signature flight, charter flights out at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, where the Minnesota Wilds returning from their 2-game trip to Dallas. So we're going to be hearing from people there and the Minneapolis City Council getting ready to go to talk about a couple issues that we're interested in. But we're going to take a quick break and be right back with those right after this. All right, welcome back to All Day. We're going to get out to Signature Air at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, the charter service that the Wild have used to return from Dallas. As the head coach speaking now, he did say Matt Zuccarello and Jakob Trenjan, no updates to their injuries yet, and hope to know more tomorrow. But let's listen in.
Yeah, I think that's more of what it is than anything.
It's easy to point to Zuccarello's absence, going 0 for 4 on the power play, but just what did you see there that maybe Dallas took away and that you guys need to do better?
Same thing I said last night. I think that our some of our execution needs to be a little bit better. I think when you play with, when you have a plan and you know things that you want to attack, you've got to make sure that you're staying with that, and then your skills to come out. And then the other thing is, I think one of the things that makes our power play really good is we have highly talented players, but they're extremely competitive. Puck battles, keeping plays alive. I think that wasn't as strong as it needed to be last night.
What are you hoping for you for tomorrow for preparation as far as adjustments, but also the preparation just mentally for the team, emotionally going into it?
Yeah, I think that was really dealt with last night for the most part. In playoffs, so sometimes in the regular season you talk to the team after a game, always after a win, sometimes after a loss if you think the team needs it or it's the right time to do it. We talked last night after the game, and we got another opportunity to talk again. But I think it's good. Like I said, it's one game. I think when you come out and everything was built up, that there was going to be a response. And I think, like I said, our team didn't take a step back from a competitive standpoint, style of game, opportunities to score. I think that I do like. And now it's just tweaking things again. You get information from that game, right? And we didn't get the result we wanted. And whether you win or lose, it's all about the next game. So that's our mindset, and that's how we're going to prepare for tomorrow.
In the meantime, you've grabbed home ice advantage now. I mean, do you, how much does having those matchups really benefit you?
It can. I think matchups are effective, but as I always say in those things, you can have matchups, but it all comes down to how our team is going to be able to play. And I think that we have a good group, and matchups can be advantageous at times. I don't think you want to chase them. Even in Dallas, it wasn't a lot of hard matches either way. I think both teams are deep. So we'll see. We have some things in mind, but I don't think you're going to chase it either.
Yeah. Are you sticking with Walz in goal?
Yes.
Did you feel like as physical as they played Boldy and Kaprizov yesterday that you guys did the same to their top guys?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty physical. On their guys, it wasn't a lot of time and space or easy ice anyways. I mean, the one thing I'll tell you with, Bolds and Kirill, like, those guys are highly competitive, skilled players. They are not going to get checked out of games. Yeah. So, but you know what? That was a little bit more probably of what the series is going to be like moving forward on both sides. But you take guys like that, they're anything but soft skill. Yeah. And they'll fight for ice. They'll find ways. They're competitive. They're hard on the puck. So like I said, I think it's information that we gather. Whether you win or lose a game, the individual players gather some things, we gather some things, and then you just re-ramp and get ready to go.
Especially Boldy, right? I mean, he still winds up with, what, a half dozen shots yesterday, I think, and a ton of scoring chances, and yet it's probably the most physical we've seen a team with him this year.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, they're tough guys to stop because, as I said, I think that's what makes those guys special is they are the type of guys and the type of competitors that they have talent, but they have hard skill too.
The diligence in the neutral zone, John, just how much that's maybe been a factor that's kind of stymied them a little bit, and they're having to flip pucks and just not being able to get as many rush plays, I guess, as we did in game one.
Yeah, I think it's important, for that. Just being able to finish on top. I think that part of the game, checking, being on top of teams, being on our toes, having come through 200 feet, have to come through people, not giving easy ice. I think that's something that is an identity we've played with all year long, and it's something that's got to continue to get stronger as the series goes on.
Part of the conversation you had with the team last night, you're now stolen home ice. Even though you lost game 2, do you have to remind them that you guys came here and did what they wanted? You obviously you'd like to win 2, but you still stole 1 and are in control now. Is that part of the conversation for them as well?
Yeah. I mean, part of it is, it's not going in and stealing. Like, we just took one game at a time. We went and won game 1, and it was a highly contested game 2 that we didn't come out on top. And now it's just all about game 3. It's not, for us, it's not so much about, stealing home ice or whatnot. I just think it's the focus of the next game and the preparation, and not getting into, what happened in the past or what we did. We went 1-1. Thought we were pretty competitive in both games. We can be better tomorrow.
Can you talk to the officials about Dallas slowing you guys down in the neutral zone, cutting people off, the kind of interference that they're running? Is that a tactic that you can use to point that out?
Yeah, I mean,
kind of access to officials.
Well, you meet with it. There's a referee supervisor, that speaks with me and Billy and Glenn and Jim. Usually tomorrow we'll probably have a quick meeting on it, but for the most part, you just have to play. You have to play through it. It's not about that. You just have to, that's more information you gather, right? That's what I'm saying, is that each game goes on, you're going to get a little bit of everything. But for us, it's about what we can control, and that's another aspect that's in our control.
What this first time you challenged to delay a game, I mean, was it a nerve-wracking one that they would definitely see that puck hit the stick, or worry that maybe they thought the stick hit the stick? It was.
Yeah, it's a pressure moment, because it goes down 5-on-3. But like I said all along, I think our 2 video coaches do a really good job. As with Freddie, we work on it, we study it. They're on top of things, and it was it was a critical decision for sure. But I think once you saw it and they have the different angles, then it was the right call. But if it wasn't the right call, we probably would have been in one. But I think you have to do the right thing, right? And our guys did a good job with that.
Yeah. Was it the too many men on you? Was it too many men? Like, looking at the replay, it looked like your defense was holding the puck, waiting for a line change.
Yeah, I mean, it had zero. I mean, I think Eck was 5 feet from the bench, and Brink was coming off. It had no impact on the play, but they called it, so.
Yeah. All good?
Yep.
All right, see you guys. Have a good day.
The other thing is, I'm there too many.
All right, that was Wild head coach John Hines upon returning to the Twin Cities, flying back from Dallas today. Dropped a game to the Stars last night after soundly winning their first game of that series. So again, puck drop tomorrow night at Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul, scheduled for 8:30. In the playoffs, often they do not quite hit that schedule. So 8:30 or later, we shall see what happens. Of course, the Wolves play then at home the following night, on Thursday night. These are the live events that we're watching, waiting to see. Obviously, we might get some more people talking to us for the Minnesota Wild, maybe not. At the bottom right there, that's the Minneapolis City Council. They've got a couple of issues that they're talking about. One is an eviction moratorium extension, something already vetoed by the mayor, but now they're trying a shorter extension. And they're also talking about changing the rules about drug paraphernalia, the criminalization of that. They want to remove the criminalization of having drug paraphernalia and change it to manufacturing it instead. And then directly below me, that's the House Committee on Fraud and State Agency Oversight that we're going to continue to watch. So we're going to take a quick break, though, right now and come back and check in on all of these on the other side of that and see which one is the most interesting to pop into. We'll be right back here on All Day Live. All right, welcome back to All Day Live. These are the live events we're watching at the Capitol, at Minneapolis City Council, but also at MSP International Airport at the charter facility. The Minnesota Wild just returned from Dallas. That is Ryan Hartman. Let's listen into that.
Going on in a playoff series, you see that with not just ours, but in other series that we've been watching. Yeah, I mean, you know, we're a tough team. I think everyone knows how tough we are, but. You know, I think it takes a lot to maybe just let things kind of happen and walk away from some stuff.
Is that easier? You've been able to do that this year, right? I mean, play to your identity, draw a lot of penalties. Like, how much, can the team kind of adopt what you've been doing? Because there is so much after whistles, but how do you strike that balance, like playing your game, but...
Yeah, you want to be hard to play against. You want to make it a long night when you can. You know, and kind of you got to feel the game out sometimes. Sometimes things start getting called right away. Sometimes things are let go, and it kind of like that's kind of a game by game type of thing. But yeah, that's you know, I think we want to play 5-on-5. We want to make sure that you know when there is power plays and stuff like that, we're hoping that we're on the receiving end of that.
Can you, like inside baseball, like when Ranton's doing that to you yesterday, kind of mimicking you? I mean, how do you keep your check there? Like, what's being said?
He looked dumb in that.
Is it you know, is it tough yesterday? I mean, they call you for the slashing, you're getting cross-checked, and then they're not calling that on them. I mean, how do you keep your emotions in check on those situations where Tyler's getting away with stuff and Boldy's getting cross-checked and slew-footed and stuff?
Yeah, slash a guy in the shin pad with 9 seconds left in the game, down 2 goals. Maybe the ref was looking to call something and keeping an eye out on some little stuff at the end of the game, but kind of a meaningless call at that point in the game.
How different was it with Matt's out there, obviously, yesterday, and not knowing when he could return? Just how can you guys compensate for his absence moving forward?
Yeah, he's a big part of our team. You know, hopefully we get him back here next game, and you know, we'll see where that goes. You know, sucks the way you know, an elbow to the head. It sucks the way you lose a guy like that.
Ryan, how do you look at the series right now? You got the first one, obviously you wanted 2, so there's that disappointment of not winning, but you did get that victory down there, and now it's basically a best of 5. Do you reset now? Do you guys feel you accomplished what you wanted going down there? Where do you think the team's head at going into Game 3?
Yeah, every game's a reset. We're up 1-0. Game 2 is a reset. If we were to be up 2-0 right now, it's still a reset. I mean, every game you reset. Doesn't matter where you're at, what the series is at. You take each game as a new day, and you know, every win gets harder.
If he goes 11-7 tomorrow night, I mean, do you like that as forwards when you know you're going to get a lot more ice time? I mean, is it like, what's it like on the bench when you go into a game down a forward?
Yeah, I don't know. That's obviously could be an option. I don't know what Heinze said earlier, but yeah, I mean, the more you play in games, the more flow you have, the more involved you are, and you know, I've always played better. The more I'm out there, I think that goes with everybody. You kind of feel the flow a little bit more, and yeah, it's easier to kind of get yourself involved.
What's Ottinger been like to play against? You scored goals against him. He was very good last night. Played him a number of times. What's he like? You just bring your game to him, and you don't know what you're going to get because he can be so good.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know. I didn't have a shot last night, so I'm not really sure. I didn't really see him yesterday. I think he's a really good goalie. You know, he makes some big saves at some times last night. Like I said, I think we can get to the net a little bit more and get in front of him, make his life a little harder.
Thanks. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Did you like being team spokesman today? Yeah.
That's Minnesota Wild Ryan Hartman. You can see, you know, never a gregarious guy to begin with, but certainly subdued in the wake of a loss. And as he mentioned, he didn't even have a shot on goal last night. He had 1 goal and 1 assist in Game 1 at Dallas, but not last night. So goalie Jake Ottinger for the Stars playing very, very well. Lakeville native. And so certainly a lot of folks that wonder why he couldn't have been part of the Wild at some point along the line. And certainly the way he's been playing always makes it exciting if he could be part of the Wild. But we have two pretty good goalies in Jesper Wallstedt and the Gus Bus. So anyway, there you go. Still waiting to see who else may be talking out there as the Wild return home to prepare for puck drop tomorrow night back on the home ice in St. Paul. All right, elsewhere we've been looking for the Minneapolis City Council. We've been watching that meeting. They've been doing some committee reports, but right now they're talking about some other issues. This now talking about once again trying to bring in an extension to the pre-eviction notice in the wake of Operation Metro Surge. The mayor vetoed their first effort. Now they've shortened the extension that they'd like to add and are discussing that now.
So, colleagues, today before you, we have a 45-day pre-eviction notice that will be effective until August 31st. This is Pause Eviction Saves Lives. What this ordinance seeks to do is to give struggling working people of our city an extra 15 days to get the money and the support they need to pay their rent and avoid a life-altering eviction filing, and even worse, a brutal eviction that has lasting impacts that will cascade over any chances of having good housing opportunities into the future for years to come. The fact of the matter is people want to pay their rent, they want to keep their housing. They don't want to have the weight of an eviction filing holding them back, and shelter is the most essential need that anyone can have. And we can play a pivotal role in maintaining that for our residents, especially our Black, Brown, Indigenous, immigrant working residents. March filings for evictions alone have jumped 18.9% year over year in the 7-county metro, mirroring the statewide spike at 18.7%. This suggests that even in areas with the most concentrated resources and organizing, eviction pressures are intensifying as temporary support fades. The cost of living for our people across the city has only gone up, and the housing crisis has only increased. The brutality of Operation Metro Surge has only exacerbated that, tearing families apart, forcing people to choose between making a living or having a future here in Minneapolis. We have all heard the countless stories from our neighbors who have been targeted and forced into a place of economic uncertainty from a federal government, a situation that was not of their own making. Why 15 days? 43% of private employers in America pay their workers biweekly. That accounts for 73% of workers, followed by the second most popular pay frequency, weekly payments, at 23% of private employers paying their workers. 15 extra days means, for the overwhelming majority of Americans, additional income to pay for housing. We also know that even as rental assistance has passed through this body, and we anticipate and hope for additional support from the state legislature, it takes time. There are tenants waiting to access the rental support that we have passed, and they need time. There needs to be time for implementation. Mutual aid funded by our community at the grassroots continues and is also the most accessible way for neighbors to get their needs met. But the pace at which that funding is being raised has slowed, and it's drying up, and they need time. Rental assistance and a 15-day increase in time for people to pay rent are not in competition with one another, even as that was how it was framed in our discussions prior. They are complementary. Rental assistance and 15 extra days goes together. And we've done the work of passing rental assistance And again, we're waiting for implementation. And so we must create the time for people to get that funding together. This is a both-and situation. Colleagues, it was clear that the 60-day pre-eviction notice did not prevail, but the need is still there. May 1st is right around the corner, and I ask you to look at this as another path forward. I ask you to have an open mind, and I ask you to consider this for your support today so we can come together and make this happen. 15 extra days means 15 extra days before an eviction filing hits the doors of our residents.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I open the public meeting, I will share a couple notes. At the conclusion of the public hearing, we'll take up discussion from colleagues, and the chair has moved approval of this item. I'll second that. As it relates to the public hearing today, each speaker will be given 2 minutes to testify and 4 minutes if you require interpretation services. If you wish to
All right, we've been listening into the Minneapolis City Council, again discussing a moratorium or an extension on eviction notices in the city. Again, a previous effort that they'd passed was vetoed by the mayor, Jacob Fry, and it was kind of a veto they couldn't override it. They didn't have the votes to override the veto. Now they're trying to introduce it again as a shorter extension to the pre-eviction notice. We're going to pop back over to the state capitol, though, in the House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Committee. They were talking about charter schools and oversight there, concerns about their performance and some fraudulent spending there. Now they've moved on to discussing Feeding Our Future, a topic we know well. We've covered a few trials here and seen a lot of plea deals in the recent months. So we're going to listen into that portion back at the state capitol.
We discussed that with him. He put out an op-ed saying, in January of 2022, a month after his meeting with the people involved in Feeding Our Future and that recording, my office got our first indication from the FBI of the scale of Feeding Our Future's illegal conduct. So in 2022, he's saying they led and they brought it forward and they were in charge. And then in April of 2025, he said, oh, we had no idea. We got our first indication in January of 2022, right when the warrants came out. So his contradictory statements on this need to be addressed, again, for the public record, and I'm very disappointed that he is not here to answer these questions.
Madam Chair, just one quick clarification, if I may.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm realizing part of the confusion here. The letter from the Attorney General references your request to him to testify, and I wasn't part of that exchange, so I don't know, but the way he's quoting this is that it was a request to provide, quote, an update on the prosecutions of the Feeding Our Futures cases, and then also information on how many cases have been processed, procedures for prosecution. So his office's role in civil matters relating to this, the letter gets
All right, again, just a little portion here. The House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Committee, as they discuss, again, trying to prevent fraud in Minnesota, really trying to examine the causes of some of that, discussing now Feeding Our Future and how that food nutrition program sponsor was handled now years ago. And, who dropped the ball here? Who missed the warning signs? What didn't go as it should have? Well, that does it for us here on All Day on air on Channel 9. All Day does continue, though, over on our Fox Local app with Courtney Godfrey. That'll be coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you tomorrow. Here's some Zen to finish out the show. Thanks.